Tuesday, September 6, 1966. Dear Mom, you'll probably be hearing about us again. Yesterday, my platoon had 6 injured and 1 killed. We had a firefight that lasted 9 hours. We killed a lot of BC on this operation we're on now. We've also had a lot killed. I wrote Sue and told her to give you back my ring. It's still a good ring, although it doesn't work too good. I can always give it to some other chump. I mean girl. Well, Mom, I don't have much time, and I just wanted you to know I'm all right. When you go to church, I want you to give all the people you see this address and tell them to send anything they can, like old clothes and anything. I went down to this orphanage the other day, and these little kids are pitiful. They sleep on plain floors and don't get hardly anything to eat. The reason I want you to tell everyone to help them is because I feel I may have killed some of their parents. And it makes me sick to know they have to go on with nothing. Address, Mang Lang Orphanage, Loloy Street, Tu Hoa, Vietnam. Love your son, Dan.
BFC Daniel Bailey was assigned to A Troop, 2nd Battalion, 17th Cavalry, 101st Airborne Division from May 1966 through June 1967, operating in 2nd Corps. He's unemployed and receives disability compensation from the Department of Veterans Affairs for post-traumatic stress disorder. He lives in Clarington, PA.
My dearest Bev, for the last week we have been waiting for an attack, and last night it came in full force. Honey, I was never so scared in my life. We got hit by 12 mortars and rockets, and some even hit our ammo dumps, which really hurt the battery. A mortar landed about 30 feet from me, and I was lucky enough to have my head down, but the sergeant next to me didn't, and we think he lost an eye. We got 3 men seriously hurt, and 4 others shaken up by the blast. This was my first real look at war, and it sure was an ugly sight. I helped carry some of the wounded away, and boy, I sure hope I don't have to do that again. It was an experience you can never explain in a million words. The noise from shooting is enough to drive a person crazy. Even after the attack last night, we had to stay up and wait for a ground attack, which lucky for us never came. We expect to catch a lot of hell through May because it seems that the VC are really putting on a big push. Bev, I was so surprised last night to see that the men here were willing to put to risk their own lives to save a buddy's. It really makes you have faith in people again. But I hope I don't have to go through what we did last night in a long time, like never. I take your picture out quite often and just look at it, because it's such a relief from this pitiful place to see such a beautiful being. I am thinking of you always. All my love, Al.
Dear Daryl, you asked about Vietnam, so I'll tell you. I love it. I really am happy over here. The work's hard and all the time, but it keeps me on my toes. The men are grossly wonderful and fully appreciate a round eye in their midst. Several times a week, we visit the hospitals and either chat with the troops or program them, depending on their condition. This is one of the most disheartening and yet morale-boosting jobs for me. Just this past Monday, we went to the big Navy hospital, and what a sight we saw. Some of the guys had just been moved from intensive care ward prior to being moved out, sent back to the States, within the hour. We see fellows with their arms and legs blown off, their heads smashed in and pieced together, eyes lost and hearts completely broken. Surprisingly enough, without sounding like a Clara Barton, the biggest lift we can give them is a human female hand and some cheerful words. You know that they feel like hell and then some, but it's an American, a real, live, walking, talking girl. It's amazing to see them perk up, and for some, it's a feeble attempt to move an arm or even talk. Monday, I chatted for almost 10 minutes with this kid who had his intestines lying in a plastic bag next to him, and so many tubes and bottles that you could hardly get close. But he was happy to see me and smiled like a normal fellow would. Another tried to talk and tell me about all the pieces of shrapnel in him when he started to cough up blood and mucus through his larynx tube. He tried, and after they had cleaned him up, I went back and talked to him a little longer. Another was in a revolving bed. This kid was so proud to be alive that he had to show me all those wonderful wounds. There's nothing like a pieced-together leg. He felt pleased with the American Red Cross and just asked one favor: back issues of Stars and Stripes, so he could find out if any of his unit or buddies were still alive. But the one that really pleased me was the fellow I almost passed right by because he looked so completely out of it. He was lying there with many bandages and his extremities all pieced together, his face covered with gauze and a towel-like cover over it all. On my way out, they took the towel and gauze off, and I could see why they had it on him. He was just one big mess of mush. His whole head was taped up. He had stitches all over, shrapnel all over, tubes coming out of his nose and mouth. Along with all that mess, he had scabs and a gooey crust left from the drainage. The only thing was he could see just a little out of his right eye, but that was all he needed. Apparently, his mouth had been shattered along with everything else, because when he started to talk, you could see how much had been destroyed. Aside from the blood, guts, and gore, he was alive. And when I teased him about his peephole and looked him square in the face, he responded so beautifully that I wanted to hug him. He had gained enough of his senses to know who he was talking to, where he was, and what condition he was in. I spent over 15 minutes with him and even got him to give a feeble but painful laugh. It's men like that that make it all worthwhile. I would visit and talk with them every day if I could. And yet, we're not in the business of giving sympathy, but just honest, straight American girl talk. You have to treat them as if nothing were wrong at all. Absolutely not. Jeannie.
Jean Bukina Christie was a donut dolly with the American Red Cross. She was based in Da Nang from January 1967 through February of 1968. She now works part-time as a teacher in Milford, Connecticut.